Welcome to College Football Live, presented by Dr. Pepper.
Tagovailoa fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
I think everybody can see Georgia's going to be a force to be reckoned with. We're not going anywhere.
Georgia is one of the best, most complete teams in the country. It's going to be the biggest challenge we've had to date.
You want to be a champion, you got a chance to win a championship today.
College Football Live, Chris Cotter, Emmanuel Lacho, Jonathan Vilma. Guys, we are just 2 days away from Championship Saturday, so I'm going to throw some scenarios at you as to what might happen on Saturday and how it might affect the playoff. Let's start with Clemson winning against Pitt in the ACC title game. Notre Dame's already in, let's just face it. But what if Alabama were to beat Georgia in the SEC, or what if they were to lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game? Ach, I'm going to start with you. Would the Big Ten and the Big 12 then be completely left out of the picture?
If Alabama loses, they're the one team that still gets grace and I think can afford to lose their conference championship game and still make it in the college football playoff. Let's be frank, Cotter. Alabama has won their last 3 games by a combined 126 to 38. 126 to 38. That's how bad they beat opponents. They have proven all season that they're one of the best teams, even if they have one close loss, and it has to be close. If they have one close loss, they still got the benefit of the doubt.
Well, you hit it on the head, Acho. It depends how Alabama loses. If they go into this game and get blown out by Georgia, all of a sudden they become equal to an Oklahoma, they become equal to an Ohio State, and then the committee has to look and say, one-loss teams, who's the better opponent or who's more deserving of being the number 4 team. So depending how they lose, if it's a close game, no debate. They're in as a number 4 team. If it's a blowout, then there may be hesitation by the playoff committee to put them right back in to the number 4 spot.
Right.
Clemson's been a top 5 team all year. I mean, every time we do and talk about this and we have a Who's In show, Vilm or whatever, the Clemson's always in there. But if they were to lose in the ACC title game, one loss, no championship, and either Oklahoma or Ohio State wins, is Clemson the team on the out?
Well, not so fast. It depends, again, Cotter, how did Clemson lose the game? I referenced last year when Clemson lost to Syracuse midseason. They lost Kelly Bryant to a concussion and played with a backup quarterback and essentially got a mulligan from the playoff committee. They said this team is better than what they showed against Syracuse because of the quarterback situation. So if Trevor Lawrence were to get hurt or Travis Etienne were to get hurt and they lose the game to a close Pitt loss, they may say, well, this is a better team and still the best of the 4 teams if they have their guys healthy.
Let's be frank again. Clemson will most likely win, but if they lose, Cotter, you got to get them out of there as fast as possible. If Clemson loses to Pitt, 7-5 Pitt, the same Pitt that got beat by UCF, you can't make any kind of argument. And JV, I don't want to hear an argument for Clemson finding a way to get in. I don't care who's hurt. I don't care who's healthy. Even Trevor Lawrence injured, just feed Etienne. If they cannot win that game against Pitt, Clemson by no means deserves to make it in. To me, they didn't look dominant.
You weren't singing this tune last year. Syracuse went 4-8 last year. You didn't sing this tune about Clemson when they lost to Syracuse. Nobody was singing this tune. So if you're going to give them a mulligan last year, you got to be consistent. The committee, this is the whole point of the committee. We want consistency. So if you did it last year, what's good for last year is good for this year. And if they lose because someone gets hurt to a 7-5 Pitt team, then you have to reference what they did the prior year. And the prior year was they still put them as the number 3 team and the number 2 team, and they played.
Injuries happen in ball. If your team can't overcome the injury, you got to get them out of there. You can't just say because somebody got hurt, that is why they get a mulligan, that's why they get extra grace. Again, JV, you know as well as I do, even if somebody gets hurt on Clemson, they should still beat Pitt as 28-point favorites.
Yeah, Miami handled Pitt last week. So if Miami can get the job done, Clemson certainly, even with their JV team in there, should probably get the job done, right,
JV?
JV?
Taking shots, Chris.
It's real shady over here.
Over here.
Let me move on to another scenario that's highly reasonable, but we really don't talk that much about what if Oklahoma and Ohio State were to both lose in their respective championship games and Alabama wins. So Bama's in, Notre Dame's in, let's say Clemson wins too, but who gets that fourth spot? You can't give it to a team like Ohio State or Oklahoma that just lost, can you, Ach?
Heck no, you can't. If Ohio State and OU both lose, it's time for UCF to make the appearance that they have been waiting for. Who else you going to put in there? You're not going to put a 2-loss OU. You're not going to put Ohio State in after the only game they've looked good in all season is Michigan. You don't want another rematch between Alabama and Georgia in the playoffs. It's time for UCF to get what they've been waiting for if that scenario happens.
As much as I want to agree with you, Wacho, the playoff committee is saying UCF has no chance to get in. The playoff committee said UCF had no chance to get in when the first rankings came out and put them number 12 as an undefeated team. The only way that UCF is getting in, there is no way. So let's just put them to the side. You're going to have a Michigan or Georgia that's going to be considered for that number 4 spot because they already put Michigan ahead of a UCF, a 2-loss Michigan team.
But let me ask you this, JV. Let me ask you this.
That's just the way it is.
If you put Georgia back in, you're going to have Alabama as 1, Georgia as 4. You can't see Alabama and Georgia in SEC championship and then see them again in that first round of the playoffs. That is garbage for everybody.
Acho, the point of the playoff committee is to give us the 4 best teams. If the 4 best teams so happen to be playing and 1 and 4 play to a very, very close loss, that still could be the 4th best team. That is the whole point of the playoff committee. They look and they take the whole body of work and they say, the Georgia against UCF on a neutral site, Georgia is still the better team. They're the number 4 team.
It would be very difficult to even look at Michigan instead of Ohio State when Ohio State just blasted Michigan just a couple of weeks prior. So to me, that would also be a very tough look for the committee to have to take into consideration. All right, let's take a look at the one final team, which is brought to you by our friends at Dr. Pepper. The fans think UCF should get in.
That's what I'm telling you. The UCF has to get in. It's not even a matter of what you think. It's not a matter of what you hope. It's not what you like. If UCF does not get in now after not having lost in over 300 days or something like that, they've won nearly 25 consecutive games. What else do they have to do? I hear what you're saying,
Acho,
JV.
let me ask
you put in the best team, but what about most deserving?
Well, let me ask you this, Acho. Is UCF still the same UCF team without Mackenzie Milton?
No, they're not.
Are they a better team or a worse team without their starting quarterback?
They're worse. We know that. We know that for a fact.
So they're the worst team now. How are they all of a sudden deserving of the number 4 spot? Are they now the 4th best team in the country without their starting quarterback? Yes or no?
Because you got to prove
yes
it, JV.
Yes or no, Acho? Are they the 4th best team in the
hypotheticals.
country without their starting quarterback? Yes or no?
You're not going to have me here implicating myself.
We're not going to get to an answer for this now. We'll obviously have to give it a couple more days. We'll revisit it this weekend for sure.
One final team is brought to you by Ice Cold Dr. Pepper, the official drink of Fansville.
When we come back, Il Pirata. That's right, Mike Leach is unhappy. We'll hear from him as to why when College Football Live continues. And Sunday, we'll have the exclusive reveal of the College Football Playoff semifinal matchups in the Capital One Orange Bowl and the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Those games we played on the 29th. And the final top 25 rankings in our 4-hour special, noon on Sunday on ESPN and the Watch ESPN app.
You're watching College Football Live, presented by Dr. Pepper. College Football Live is presented by Ice Cold Dr. Pepper, the official drink of Fansville.
We are in 4-down territory. First down, Wazoo has had a memorable season, but given where the playoff committee currently has the Cougars ranked, they may miss out on a New Year's Six Bowl, number 13. Look at all those 3-loss teams ahead of them, all of which does not sit well with Mike Leach, who ranted about it on the Freddie and Fitz radio show last night.
Every 10-2 team's in the top 7, except for one. They're number 13. But they played more winning teams, more ranked teams, stat out. I mean, any way you measure it. And, I mean, that doesn't even make sense. I mean, you guys tell me about that. You know, I don't know what's said in the in the room or whatever, and I don't quite understand why we have that many SEC teams in there, because if you look at the bottom half of the SEC, not just the SEC beats them, everybody else does. First of all, we played 9 conference games. These other guys don't play more than 9 conference games. Some of them have played 2 1AA teams. Nearly all of them have been blown out. And I'm not criticizing the SEC for, their approach to scheduling. I think it's better than ours, because despite the fact they don't play as tough a schedule, they don't play as many conference teams, and overall as many winning teams and bowl-eligible teams. It moves the needle for them better than our format moves the needle. You compare us to all those other teams, everybody thought we were going to get our head kicked in. But we're sitting here with 10 wins, and then also we got the story of the year, a guy that ought to win the Heisman, Gardner Minshew. There's no way it should be like that.
Awesome stuff from Leach. Och, is the Pirate right to be outraged?
100% right. There is no reason at all that Washington State should be that far back. No reason with 2 losses they should be sitting behind several 3-loss teams. That's completely and utterly inexcusable. It's unexplainable. I don't get the logic there at all.
I get the logic. What happened was they only watched Washington State versus Washington in the Apple Cup, and unfortunately for Mike Leach, they laid an egg. And Washington State looked poor in that game. They couldn't throw the ball. They couldn't stop the run. So when the committee looked at the game, the only game they watched all season, clearly they said, well, LSU runs the ball better and plays better defense. Florida runs the ball better, plays better defense. Penn State runs the ball better, plays better defense. And unfortunately, that's what happened. They didn't watch the whole season. They watched one game. And unfortunately for Wazoo, that was the worst game they had all season long.
That's where the bias comes in to me. Laid an egg is what Michigan did to Ohio State. What Washington State did in the snow, that's a bad game. I can't call that laying a complete egg.
Second down and long. Jeff Brom had a breakout season in Purdue, turned down an opportunity to go back to his alma mater, Louisville, to take the head coaching job with the Cardinals. Vilma, is this more about Purdue or more about where Louisville is right now?
Man, it's a little bit of both, Chris, and it's interesting how the perception is that he had a breakout season. Purdue is 6-6, yet everybody's happy about Purdue. Where they are. They were 7-6 last year. So they beat Ohio State. They had one upset, and the season is great. You can't do that at Louisville. You face Clemson every year. You face Florida State every year. On top of that, you got to go out and recruit. So Purdue is a great fit for Brom right now, what he's doing with the program and what he's trying to build. 8 wins, great season at Purdue. 8 wins at Louisville, that'll get you fired.
The answer was in the question, Cotter, like JV just said. Breakout season at 6-6. When you can be at a place like Purdue, win 6-7 games, and that be considered good, life is good. It's a lot easier than if you go to somewhere like Louisville. You win 6 games, people calling for your head.
And they won the Old Oaken Bucket, as you saw. Nothing better than that. Third down brings us to our Heisman update, brought to you by Nissan. I feel like these guys have closed the gap, and I'm talking about Murray and Haskins to Tua. Och, am I right about that?
Close the gap. Cotter, to me, Kyler Murray's in the number 1 spot. He has more yards, has more touchdowns, and he means more to his team than Tua does to Alabama. Without Tua, Alabama's still probably undefeated. But without that superstar number 1, Kyler Murray, OU probably has 2, 3, or even 4 losses. He's number 1 on the jersey, and he's number 1 to me in the Heisman race.
Ooh, I agree with you, Acho, but I have to defend Tua here. You can't discount how awesome Tua has been this season. Think about it. Kyler Murray has more yards only because Tua hasn't played a full game. He's only played in the fourth quarter once or twice this season. His numbers are phenomenal. Look what he's done. It's frankly transcended that Alabama offense, which used to be run, 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 punt. Now it's pass, pass, pass. We're getting 28 points in a quarter. What he's done and how he's revolutionized that Alabama offense, that's the reason why he's the front runner and the winner of the Heisman Trophy, because it's been so awesome for Bama and so refreshing to see.
4th down, and this is what we're going to do. Horns down, and it's because the Big 12, the Big 12 says it might be unsportsmanlike.
How do you do that? Like that?
Yeah, like that. That's the horns down right there. The Big 12 says, Vilma, it might be unsportsmanlike on Saturday for the Sooners to do that. Come on, Big 12.
Stop it. Stop it. That's just soft. Stop it. We're not going to sit here and worry about all the Texas fans' feelings right now. It's about playing football. If you don't want them to do the horns down, then don't let them score. If you don't want to see them do it, don't let them have big plays. Stop it already. It's ridiculous. Asha, did you go and fight for this? Were you over there with the refs talking about how bad you felt when everyone's scoring on you? Like, what is this? It's ridiculous.
Here's the thing. I'm with you, JV. Even when y'all throw the horns down, it made my blood boil as a Longhorn alum. But I love it. It's what the game is about. If they score, throw the horns down. If they get a sack, throw the horns down, because guess what? When the Longhorns make their big plays, they're going to throw them up. When the Gators make their big plays, they're going to chomp. So if the other team decides to make a big play and rub it in your face, that's the game of football, and that's why we love the game of football. It is a trash decision and a trash ruling. Let them throw it down if that's what it is.
I'm with both you guys on that one, on that game on ABC, by the way, on Saturday, Sooners and Longhorns. All right, when we come back, Mel Kiper Jr. is going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on Dwayne Haskins and how that big game against Michigan last week may have improved his stock come next spring's NFL draft. It's Championship Saturday. We start, as we mentioned, with the Red River rematch, noon Eastern on ABC. Memphis takes on number 9 UCF for the American title, and Clemson and Pitt in the ACC Championship game, all on ABC on Saturday, and also on the ESPN app, so you can watch them anywhere you go.
This Heisman Update is brought to you by Nissan, premier partner of the Heisman Trophy. College Football Live is presented by Ice Cold Dr. Pepper, the official drink of Fansville.
On this week's Wendy's Fresh Look, Ohio State quarterback Dwayne Haskins ranks in the top 10 nationally in completion percentage, passing yards, touchdown passes, and total QBR. He also set Big Ten single-season passing records for yards and touchdowns along the way. Time for a new segment here on College Football Live, Kipe and Cot. I like the sound of that. Mel Kiper Jr. joins us right now. Mel, Haskins has been impressive all year, but he was ultra impressive in Columbus against the nation's #1 pass defense, just shredding Michigan. Has he done enough, even in just that last week, to move up on your big board?
That's what he's done all year, Chris. I think that's what I was waiting for, that statement game against Michigan, obviously in a situation where they were the underdog. Everybody thought Michigan would waltz into the Final Four, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen because of Dwayne Haskins. He was a big piece of the equation. 6 touchdown passes, no picks, complete 65% of his passes, those for nearly 400 yards against Don Brown, great coordinator, and 6 players off this defense that could be starters in the NFL in a not-too-distant future. So that's why I waited for a third-year sophomore with 1 year, not even a full year as the starter, Chris. Like Mitch Trubisky, it's conceivable that he could end up being in the top 5 overall, maybe a #1 quarterback coming off the board if he decides to come out early.
Franchise-type quarterback for him, then, in other words.
Well, I think pump the brakes a little bit. There's some things I think by going back to Ohio State, he could work on ball placement. I've watched him on tape, Chris. He's a little off. He makes those running backs, even on the swing passes, the screens, work a little hard for that catch. He's a little high at times. He doesn't always sense pressure. We'll go back to the Penn State game. But these are things that he can work on even once he's in the league. Yeah, there's a chance, like I said, if things go right at the end of the year, they got a minimum of 2 games left. And if he plays well there, carries that momentum into the draft process, like I say, he could challenge Justin Herbert from Oregon. And we don't even know if Herbert's coming out. And he didn't have the great year expected at Oregon with the Ducks.
We always have NFL talent in the SEC championship game. I mean, we have it in spades. Except I feel kind of like this year, Mel, we don't have the name power, though, the superstars that everybody recognizes right off the bat. But give us a couple of names that we really need to keep our eyes on.
It's going to be a defensive-heavy draft, Chris, at the top. Defensive line, strongest position in the draft. And we thought Ed Oliver was going to be the top defensive tackle, but instead it's been Quinnen Williams from Alabama, who has been a dominant force since day one. You think about 7 sacks, tackles for loss. He's done it all. He's a third-leading tackler. And then you think about DeAndre Baker for Georgia. You're going to try to cover Jerry Jeudy and all those great sophomores and Waddle, the freshman. DeAndre Baker is a big-time veteran corner with 7 career picks. He needs to come up big and be a lockdown corner in this game for the Georgia Bulldogs. And he could be a potential top 10 pick come late April.
Speaking of potential top 10 picks, no surprise, Rashawn Gary, the defensive tackle at Michigan, declaring early for the NFL draft. Former #1 recruit coming out of high school. Where do you see him fitting in with the draft?
It's going to be based, I think, on talent and potential with Rashawn Gary and some versatility, scheme versatility. But you want to see more sacks, more dominant performances. 9.5 career sacks. Nick Bosa, 17.5 career sacks in 5 fewer games, Chris. So I think for Rashawn Gary, you're drafting him on what he can be. I think he has yet to play his best football. He needs to really kick it up a notch once he's in the league. But on talent and potential, he could go certainly top 10, maybe even top 5 to 6 overall.
Kipe and caught. I like the sound of it. I think it's got staying power. Thanks, Mel. We'll talk with you down the road.
See you, Chris. You take her, bud.
Just enough time for 3 and out. A Texas lawmaker filed a bill that would bring back the Texas and A&M rivalry. Acho, do we need lawmakers to get involved here? Make it happen.
Cotter, I'll take lawmakers, I'll take human interference, I'll take spiritual, supernatural interference, whatever it takes to bring Texas and Texas A&M back. I don't know who's scared. We hear it's A&M, we hear it's the Longhorns, but whatever it is, come back rivalry game.
Make it happen. All right, Mike Leach is thinking about teaching a class entitled Leadership Lessons in Insurgent Warfare and Football Strategy. I'm lining up to take this class, Vilma. I don't know about you.
I'm not lining up to take that class. Look at his resume. How many titles has he won?
Oh my
None.
God.
Why would I be going to take this class? What am I going to learn? I'm not going to learn anything besides to choke in the big games. No, thank you.
JV, you need to take a little more class, JV. You might be a little classier, okay?
Listen, I was on his bandwagon until he choked in the Apple Cup, all right? Maybe
Even if
wrong.
I don't learn
appreciate
anything,
it.
I'm taking that class just to hear him lecture. Vilma, Mark Richt can't even secure the services of his own nephew. Max Johnson, 4-star quarterback, going to LSU?
Look, it's still early. He can definitely get him back. We want to create a little drama. We already know what's going to happen. Family dinner. They're going to talk, hug it out. He's coming to Miami.
Nobody wins when the family feuds. That's what they say. Sounds like a family feud in Miami.
You're right. Johnson is in the class of 2020, JV, so he's got some time. Maybe
Time.
over,
Relax.
Christmas
Good.
conversation, Easter, July 4th. Figure it out then, guys.